half in the bag. Expired pretzels? Ubi cakes?
What the fuck's an ubi keg?
It's like a dry sponge.
Are you sure it's not just a sponge? Oh, God.
How are we supposed to survive off this, Jay? Beer can only take us so far.
That hasn't been proven. Hey, how come most of the beer is on your side?
There's some beer right there. Don't you see it?
No, that's a walker.
No, it's behind the walker.
There's a lampshade behind the walker.
Don't think I'm not onto you. I got all the beer. You got all the toilet paper. At some point, this is going to come to an impasse.
Well, if things get really desperate, there's alcohol in hand sanitizer, right?
Yeah.
I mean, what else am I going to use it for?
Oh, no. Well, did you see Gretel and Hansel?
I did see Gretel and Hansel. I missed it in the theater.
You've been turned out of your home, set out to fend for yourselves with only your clothes and your hides.
I wanted to see it. I was curious to see it because it's directed by Oz Perkins, star of Quigley.
The star of Quigley.
Yeah.
And what about the really nice move you just made on the briefcase?
When dogs have to go, they go quick. And I hurt my knee, lifting my leg to pee.
Co-star. The real star is, of course, Gary Busey.
Do you have a problem with dogs?
Yes.
But the secondary star is Oz Perkins, who has to stand next to Gary Busey and give the performance of his life, where he acts like Gary Busey is not a crazy person that falls into bushes.
How did you do that?
I hope you have what it takes to solve this problem.
I gotta go.
But you've seen Black Coat's Daughter, right?
Loved it.
That's one of my favorite horror movies.
Another Mad Men connection.
Oh yeah, the John Hamm's daughter.
Yes.
From it is on that. Yeah. So I was looking forward to this movie because of that, and it's a very good movie. It's one of those. He didn't write it. He wrote Black Coat's Daughter. He didn't write this movie, and it's one of those cases of like probably kind of like average, okay-ish script that is elevated by fantastic filmmaking, because this is one of the most gorgeous-looking movies I've seen in a really long time. It's lots of wide lenses, great cinematography. The witch is played by the Borg Queen.
Alice Krieg?
Alice Krieg, yeah. She's creepy and fantastic in it. But at the end of the day, it's the story of Hansel and Gretel. They do a twist where, because it's called Gretel and Hansel, this is another one where it's like, are the trolls going to come out?
No, that to me was a brilliant idea, because I was going to watch this movie too, and I searched for Hansel and Gretel.
Oh, there's like cheapo ones on Amazon.
55 titles came up.
Yeah.
From the Jeremy Renner crap to Asylum garbage, Redbox trash.
Yeah.
But he was smart to reverse the names,
Yeah.
because then it was easier to find.
Yeah, well, and also all of his movies have been kind of female-centric. Like, obviously, Black Coat's Daughter, all the leads in that are...
I don't think there was ever a Hansel and Gretel was just sort of what it was called. I don't think there was in the fairy tale, a difference between the boy and the girl. They were just siblings, right?
Yeah, if I remember, they're like the same age or around the same
Yeah.
age. They might be twins. I don't know. But this one, she's a little bit older, and it's more focused on her, so it's more like... It's hard not to compare it to The Witch, unfortunately. The Witch is a masterpiece, but it's like period movie focused on a young girl kind of coming of age in the backdrop of being sort of seduced or lured in by a witch.
Wouldst thou like to live deliciously?
Delicious.
So it's not The Witch, unfortunately, but it's like I said, one of the best looking movies I've seen in a really long time. It's got that great kind of like fall atmosphere. It's really atmospheric. The music's great. It's just good enough to make you wish it was better. It's one of those movies.
Like Veronica?
Like Veronica.
Cause of death? Apparent shock and loss of blood.
Nice.
I have a feeling it's one of those movies, and maybe I was mildly disappointed just because I love Blackcoat's Daughter so much, and this is, in a way, it's more conventional, but at the same time, the pacing of it is so slow that I can't imagine. I'm picturing like the Blumhouse crowd being like, this shit's boring.
Yeah.
In fact, if you look at the IMDb user reviews, it's 1 out of 10 or like 9, 10 out of 10. Yeah. There's no in between, even though I'm kind of in between.
Yeah. Yeah. Usually that's a sign of a good movie. Do they do, see, I Hansel and Gretel, I always think of, it was like a TV movie of the week or something. As a kid, I had it taped on a VHS tape, and I'd watch it. And I just remember Hansel was in like a little cage.
Yeah, this has that element of like she keeps feeding them and feeding them. The idea is that they've been sort of disowned by their parents. So there's this kind of theme of abandonment and going out into the world and becoming your own person, which is with Gretel. She's the older sibling, so it's really kind of her coming of age and deciding what kind of person she wants to be, because the witch is sort of luring her in to sort of be her apprentice in a way.
Would you recommend?
I would. I think it's one of those movies that'll kind of grow on me over time, because it's decent. I wish it was better, but this is the type of movie I can see watching a lot in like October. This is a good like Halloween time, fall atmosphere kind of. It's a creepy movie, but it doesn't get by completely on atmosphere. The story kind of like the familiarity with the story, because Hansel and Gretel's been told. It's like making a new Robin Hood movie. They make a new Robin Hood movie every year, and you're like, fuck, another one? So it has a little bit of that quality going on, but the visuals carry it a long way.
Just shake yourself dry.
Pairings. Spicy food and grilled beef. Well, what about ube cakes?
I guess if these are like sponges, they'll come in handy for sanitizing things, right?
Clean some surfaces with them. Is there something about this? Golden sweet corn. This has been open for 6 months. Oh. Oh.
This is like a never-ending hell where every day is the same thing. It's like, kind of reminds me of that movie.
Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey.
I was going to insert joke here. That's the lead into Vivarium, but you say something that sounds like the plot of Vivarium, but then you say a different movie for comedic effect.
Sure, I understand.
That's the joke.
Okay, here we go.
Welcome to Yonder, a wonderful development. It has all you'd need and all you'd want.
So we both watched Vivarium.
Yeah. Did you watch it because I told you to watch it? Or
no,
did you
I watched it before that.
Oh, okay, that sounds something else.
No, I just watched this on my own because it sounded great. I loved the premise, and I guess you liked it more than me. I thought it started great, and then it started to get tedious, which is partially by design, I guess, because that's kind of the whole concept of the movie, but it lost me at a certain point. I loved the simplicity of the beginning of it. I love the concept of like hell or purgatory is just an endless suburbia that you can't escape. It's a little on the nose, it's a little obvious, but it works. It's a very Twilight Zone-y kind of premise.
Yes, all those things I agree with you on. The suburbia thing sort of bugged me at first because I thought it was going to go in a bad direction, in an annoying direction. I love movies where people are trapped in a thing, which my next film to watch is going to be The Platform.
You got to watch The Platform. Platform and this are very similar in that they're great premises. The first 45 minutes or so are great, and then it starts to lose you, and it gets kind of lost in its own metaphor, and then it ends, and you're like, oh.
I was saying in regards to the platform, I like movies where people are trapped in a thing and they have to figure their way out. I love movies like that because they're really engaging to me, engrossing, where I kind of just, I put, that's the thing with a movie. You're supposed to relate to the main character. You're supposed to see yourself in the movie, connect with it.
Yeah.
Feel like you're inside the movie and you're making the same choices and all the things that are happening in the movie are happening to you.
Yeah, well, and that in these types of movies, that sense of like discovery, where you're like slowly learning, like all the opening stuff when they're trying to leave that suburban neighborhood and they just keep driving around and driving around and ending up back in the same place.
Yeah, you're like, try this, try that. Why aren't you trying this?
Yeah.
And when people do that, you're like, okay, great. And it's a movie you can get involved with, almost interactive in a way. You're yelling at the screen, and this movie had all that, and it definitely felt like a longer episode of The Twilight Zone. This would have been the new Twilight Zone, the non-terrible Jordan Peele Twilight Zone. I would have loved if this was a 45-minute Twilight Zone episode. It would have been, I'd be like, I'm on board.
Yeah, yeah, that's my complaint, is that it's twice as long as the concept demands.
But as a feature film, it needed some more.
Yes.
And when I said, like, okay, the suburbia thing, it's like, okay, that felt high school poetry-ish, where, man, I never want to live in a cookie cutter house where all the houses look the same and have 2.5 children and a white picket fence. That's just the man trying to put us into a box. And I'm like, no.
That's what I mean.
I'm not in that mindset.
Yeah,
not in that mindset.
When you say the premise is, like I said, it's very obvious as far as that goes, the metaphor, but it's the way it's executed and the style of it. Like the way that the suburb looks. It's
creepy.
Just like, yeah, it's creepy.
Hello?
And the real estate agent guy is creepy.
Yeah.
Creepy and unnatural. And that works. There's a big problem with the movie. Is that
it Jesse Eisenberg?
No, Jesse Eisenberg is fine.
I thought he was miscast.
I'm trying to think of somebody else.
I don't know, maybe like a Chris Pratt. He's been like a smart-assy type guy. He's like what does he do, like lawn care or something at the beginning of the movie?
He's like a handyman.
Yeah, and I don't buy Jesse Eisenberg as that.
Yeah, that's
as
true.
like a smart-ass, because he's kind of smart-ass.
Yeah.
I'm assuming he probably is one of the reasons the movie got greenlit.
Well, him and Imogen Poots are executive producers. But yeah, I agree. Someone who could be a little more, Chris Pratt would have been good. A little more hot-headed, a little more manly man.
Yeah.
Jesse Eisenberg comes off as the Weasley intellect.
Yeah, or awkward nerd.
Awkward nerd. He's perfect for a Mark Zuckerberg. You
right.
know. But yeah, I agree with you on that. The premise is held together by the characters. All we have are the two characters, right? This movie should have been 30 minutes front-loaded of character development, and then we get them to the community suburban development project, because all we learn in the beginning is that Jesse Eisenberg is the handyman. He has a ladder, and that the girl, Imogen Poots, is like a little kid teacher, a grade school teacher, and she's teaching them about wind or something.
Yeah.
And then they jump right into it, and then it drags out.
Yeah.
What we really needed was, there was a point too where there's a bird that falls off the tree, a bird that had fallen out of the nest and died, and a little girl is like, "What happened to this bird? It's dead." And she's like, "Yeah, that's nature. Fuck it, that's what happens." And then Jesse Eisenberg's character takes the time to bury the bird. And I thought these were very important character details, but it turns out later they become the opposite.
Yeah.
I thought, oh, Jesse Eisenberg is going to be the more grounded, sensitive one, and she's going to be more of the cutthroat, that's how it goes.
Yeah.
But it turns out when they're given a baby, she becomes ultra protective over it, and he becomes the monster who says, "Just fucking kill the kid."
Right.
It's
it. Not a real kid.
And so it's like, why did you set that up in reverse?
Yeah.
I was really confused by that, but if it was a movie about this budding relationship between two people, and them kind of making that transition from being boyfriend-girlfriend into being husband-wife and starting a family, then thrust into this situation where they have to be a family with a baby and all the shit that comes with it, and how they deal with that in this nightmare Twilight Zone-ish scenario, and how they interact and deal with that would have been fascinating. But we didn't get enough of their character's backstory. And what we did get was opposite of how they reacted in the world.
Right. And then the way they react in the world with the child and stuff, that's kind of the rest of the movie. It gets kind of one note, because it's just sort of that same idea over and over. She wants to protect the kid. He is grown distant. He starts, I guess out of desperation, he starts digging a hole in the yard, which again becomes, like, because that ends up, spoilers, that he ends up basically digging his own grave, which feels like a comment on, like, living in suburbia, so it's all kind of obvious. But if it was a really good, like, character drama, that would have worked.
Maybe they'll let us go.
What if they don't come?
I think this was based on a short story, or based on a short film by the same director, and I can see it working really well as a short film. But then when you stretch it out to a feature, it's like, oh, what else do we do?
Well, ultimately, what's the point, though?
Yeah, exactly.
Well,
it gets lost in, like, esoteric stuff at the end, where you're like, okay, but why?
You don't have that scene where either him or her she wants to get married, have kids, and move to the suburbs. He wants to still be young people living in the city and going out to the bars at night. Yeah. You know, they have two different ideas of where their relationship is going. And they conflict on that, and her parents hate him, his parents hate her. They you know, blah 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 blah. All this stuff that's going on in their personal lives. Then they're thrust and they're stuck in this situation.
Yeah, it's like the opposite of the Invisible Man movie, where we don't need all that backstory. We get it all from Elizabeth Moss in that opening scene.
Yeah.
And then this movie, it's like, oh, we need a lot of that before you thrust them into the situation that they're in.
Let's take Scarlett Johansson and Kylo Ren from A Marriage Story. Throw them in, what's his name? Adam Driver. Throw them into the Vivarium premise. And
there you go, yeah. The first half of Marriage Story that turns into Vivarium, then you got a movie.
Okay, we're going to go find a house for you and our son. What's this development looks so fucking cookie cutter? I'm a free spirit. I want a house that's classic farmhouse on 5 acres. No, we're gonna get this house. It's in our budget. And then they end up in Vivarium, and Kylo Ren has to dig in the ground, and he goes nuts.
But you and I both know you chose this life. You wanted it until you didn't.
Scarlett Johansson goes crazy, and they start fighting.
Oh, you're fucking insane.
Then they figure out that Palpatine's behind it all. His clone has been controlling their neighborhood for eons.
The First Order was just the beginning. I will give you so much more.
You're such a dick!
I heard you watched a horror film too.
I did. One of the scariest films I've ever seen. It was called The Boy Two Brahms.
I understand that some of Jude's behaviors would be upsetting, but I urge you to find a place where he feels safe. I think it will be good for him.
What? I watched it.
Well, let me ask you this. This is spoilers for The Boy.
Yeah.
The whole thing with The Boy is like, ooh, it's creepy doll. Is the doll alive? And then it turns out, oh, there's a guy in the walls. He's been moving the doll around. So that's the revelation at the end of the first movie. How the fuck do you make a sequel to that?
Well, very poorly. Now, yeah, The Boy, the premise is in the first one, creepy, you know, porcelain-faced little boy doll. And there's an older couple, an elderly couple, and they invite a nanny to come to the house to babysit their son. And, you know, first she's like, is this a joke? And then...
all I remember is at one point the elderly couple walks into the sea.
They both commit suicide at the end because their real son, he got burnt up in a fire or something bad happened to him that... Oh, no, he killed someone, and they...
Oh, yeah.
I don't know, some sort of cover-up, and then he ended up living in the walls.
Yeah.
And so the whole movie, the question was, is the doll alive and moving? Or is the babysitter lady going crazy? What's the real truth? We discover that it's just a doll. There's a boy in the walls, or
now
a man.
Yeah.
A man in the walls.
This should have been the second one. Should have been a prequel. It could have been a coming-of-age story.
Well, here's what happens.
Oh no!
Katie Holmes stars in this film.
Shit! Another prank? Why do you have to keep doing this?
It's a long way down.
It's a long way down. She escaped Scientology for this. And she stars in the film. She lives, I guess she lives in London, and she has a British husband and a little boy. And they have a traumatic incident in their house where the husband's away at work and they get burglarized. And so the son then refuses to talk because he's been traumatized. He won't speak. He'll just draw on a paper and tell you this. So it's like they speak with a therapist, and after a while the husband goes, let's go out to a vacation home and take some time away from the city. Maybe he'll heal. And you need to heal too, Katie Holmes, because she got hit in the head with like a statue and knocked out, and blood was coming out of her head.
Oh, I thought you were going to say she needed to heal because she was traumatized from being in Jack and Jill.
So they go to a vacation house, which is a smaller house on the property of the Brahms mansion.
Okay.
So you remember the big mansion in the old house? It's in disrepair now, and it's abandoned. And they go for a walk in the woods, and the little boy finds the Brahms doll buried in the woods. But now the doll is inexplicably alive. Its head turns, you see it smile.
It's actually alive now?
It moves and it's alive. It's now Chucky. I'm not kidding. Katie Holmes does a little investigating, trying to figure out the origin of the doll. She looks at its feet, you know, to try to find a serial number on it, and then you see it like going, smiling, and then it unsmiles, because the doll is like telling the kid, you know, Brahms made me do it, and
the doll doesn't talk, does it?
No.
Okay.
No, the doll does not talk.
That'd be a step too far.
Right.
Isn't that just Child's Play? The first Child's Play movie is that.
It's very similar.
Okay.
It's very similar. It's a bunch of blah, gray, middle of the road blah. You know, it flips over the table. So they're wondering if the kid is expressing his trauma through the doll, and then over time, Katie Holmes starts to believe that the doll is alive.
Okay. Is there an explanation as to why the doll is alive now?
Well, let me just tell you this. They get to the end. There's an ending that feels like it was a reshoot. There's a little bit where, okay, she goes on to an antique doll website.
I thought you were going to say she goes on to Antiques Roadshow. Brings out Brahms.
That would have been really great. She goes on to an antique style website, and she looks at the number imprinted on the foot, right? And it's 606H. And so she types in 606H, and nothing comes up. And later in the film, she goes, wait a minute, 909H. Or sorry, H606 909H.
Sure.
And then she types it in.
Nilbog, it's goblin spelled backwards.
Right!
Nilbog, it's goblin spelled backwards.
And so she types it in, and she finds that the doll has this long history So they're setting up a universe, or at least they're attempting to, where 1972, 1898, all these incidents where the doll is at the center of a family drama where the son murders the family.
Okay.
And so
it's not just a random doll that was in this house when a boy killed someone and then fled to live in the walls.
No, they're taking a page from the Annabelle playbook, where you can go Annabelle Comes Home, Annabelle Begins, the origin of Annabelle, Annabelle during the dinosaurs, Annabelle versus the dinosaurs, Annabelle, versus the Roman Empire.
Why was it alive in this one and not the first movie, though? Maybe it was, we just never saw it on camera?
They're doing a little retcon thing to kind of make this a universe.
Oh, Lord.
That boy movie must have made some money.
I think it was probably like a super low budget and made a shitload of money.
But then at the very end, they're like, Brahms is gone. She finds out the truth. And then they go try to find Brahms, right? And then they find him in the old mansion, and he takes the groundskeeper and he makes him levitate. And then he makes the fire, the oven explode with fire, and Brahms is doing some stuff, and the husband comes in with a bat, or actually I think he has a cricket paddle, or no, I'm sorry, croquet.
Oh.
It's a croquet mallet.
Okay.
I'm sorry, all you British folk out there. Croquet mallet, and the husband takes it and he hits Brahms in the head and shatters his head, and underneath the Brahms porcelain head is a little monster face. And he has red eyes and a butthole mouth. And
you could be making all this up, but I wouldn't know the difference.
He looks like a corpse. And he's some sort of entity or alien.
That lived inside the doll?
Yes.
Why?
I don't know.
That's for the next film, I guess.
Yeah, and who didn't live inside the doll in the previous movie, because the previous movie, I think they smashed him. But in the movie's defense, it wasn't a 10%er. I mean, it wasn't.
It sounds like it.
It was until the very end where you have like questions about what is the origin of this evil, and it's a little nebulous and vague.
Yeah.
Until then, you're like, okay, it's an all right movie that's well shot and decently acted and moving along with a couple of jump scares. I mean, horror movies are just terrible nowadays.
The studio ones. There's a lot of really great smaller movies.
It could barely qualify as a horror movie.
It's kind of like the model of it's like inverse, because right now, like independent horror movies are really good, and the studio horror movies are terrible because the studio horror movies just like have filler. It's just like padding, like what do we got to put in this to make it a feature-length movie, and then we'll sprinkle in some jump scares. That's what the old like independent, like low-budget horror movies used to be. And now it's completely opposite.
That's true. Did Brahms the Boy 2 play in theaters?
It did. I don't know if it made money, but
I can't imagine seeing that.
Paying money to see this.
Going out to the movies and paying full price,
like
opening weekend, and watching this trash. I mean, it's bad. It's competent, but uncreative. There's no kills in it. There's no real scares.
Yeah.
I am hoping for a Brahms versus Annabelle crossover.
We need to revive the very short-lived versus trend from about 15 years ago.
Can we get David F. Sandberg on board to direct this?
I think he's moved past that stuff now.
Yeah.
He made a short film recently since everyone's in quarantine, because that's how he started, was making like short YouTube movies. And he did one recently that was pretty well done. And then he made a behind-the-scenes thing about it. His YouTube channel is worth checking out.
Yeah, no, I liked, he had a video about Shazam.
This exterior location is scheduled to shoot early on. And turns out we don't have Faith, who plays Darla, because she's still on another show. She'll be available when we shoot the interior on a soundstage, but she won't be available here. Let's say she was really slow with tying her shoes, so she never got outside in time.
Here's why they didn't hang their coats up.
Yeah.
Because I had to get them back out here because we couldn't shoot this scene. He's like, look, when you actually make a movie, all these little things that you don't think of happen.
Every movie, there's like 100 decisions that have to be made every minute by all these different people.
But anyway, Annabelle versus Brahms.
The whole idea with both of them, well, I guess now Brahms moves inexplicably, even though he didn't in the first movie. But Annabelle, Annabelle's like a vessel for other horror. Annabelle never moves. So how do you do a versus movie where you have two dolls that don't move?
No, they just sit there and they stare at each other.
They conjure up other creatures and... No, they just sit there. Okay.
It's just back and forth for 2 hours.
If a studio could get away with that, they would.
Just people in the background like, honey, I'm going to the grocery store to get groceries. You can start dinner.
Just
okay.
mundane stuff.
Mundane, like, yeah.
It's like that experimental movie Wavelength. Have you ever heard of that? It's a pretty famous one. It's just a wide shot of a room, and it very slowly zooms in and goes across the room until it's like an hour long, and then it gets to the end, and it's just a close-up of a photo. It's on the other side of the room. It's like that, but just put Annabelle and Brahms in the room.
Yeah, we won't do a zoom.
Okay.
We'll do a true dolly.
Took me a minute.
Yeah. And, the very end of the frame is Brahms and Annabelle, right? A 90-minute long dolly going, I don't know, super slow.
Yeah.
And ladies walking back with laundry, kids running up and down the stairs doing homework. And at the very end, they just go and attack each other, and then cuts the credits.
Yeah. And then people go, oh my God, I jumped at the end. What a great movie. All I remember is the very end.
The last, maybe the last 30 seconds is just like insane fighting. Like as they go down to hell, they're falling into hell. Yeah. All the effects, all the action.
It makes everybody forget the last 90 minutes.
That would be the ultimate film experiment.
Yeah.
Couple comes in. Maybe there's a little like a domestic argument between the husband and the wife.
Whatever you got to do to fill time.
About bills or something.
Yeah.
You know.
They're arguing about when they'll get their stimulus check. They drag each other down to hell through a vortex, and it's like a CGI extravaganza for 30 seconds.
Minute. We'll give it a minute.
Okay.
And then we end on a Rage Against the Machine song.
Obviously.
And directed by David F. Sandberg. That was fucking awesome! Annabelle versus Brahms.
Well, I guess we're all caught up on the things we've been watching during the quarantine.
Yeah.
You stay on your side, I'll stay on mine, and we'll go back to watching stuff.
Yeah. I'm gonna tune in here to Amazon or Netflix and.
Can you do that with a dial?
Yeah. Well, I got to change the inputs.
Oh, okay.
Netflix and chill, as the kids say, right?
Sure.
Yeah, I'm gonna watch some stuff.
All right. At least I still got some of the good stuff here.
So what are you watching?
Oh, Tiger King again.
Oh.
It's the only thing on.
Yeah.
Because Netflix works like a TV station where I can't choose what to watch.
Yeah, you know they say if you're sitting for longer than an hour, you should get up and stretch your legs, which is what I'm going to do right now.
I've been sitting for 47 hours.
Oh, yeah, I got to stretch my legs.
Okay.
You give me that Woodford Reserve. Oh, fuck!